Rougarou, werewolf, lycanthrope. These are all names associated with werewolf. The creature comes from Western but also has ancient meanings across the world as a man who takes wolf form under midnight when there's a new moon. On this week, on the VenterAdventurers Folklore Fridays, we talk about the werewolf. Okay, let's start with the history of the werewolf. The start of the history of the werewolf goes all the way back to ancient times, to the Epic of Gilgamesh, where in the epic, Gilgamesh is jittered by a potential lover who he finds out had turned a potential old mate into a wolf. This is the first ever tale of a werewolf, and it shocks a lot of people because before this was uncovered, a lot of people believed the werewolf was Western. As it comes to our next ever recorded encounter is of in 1589 of the Werewolf of Bannenberg. This is a pamphlet which was distributed across London. Sadly, all the original copies are lost, but it states the stories of how a young boy is tempted by the devil to turn into a wolf. It's a very interesting epic. You can read it online where it goes through everything to do with it. But even to this day, werewolves still make it into folklore. Everyone's seen the films like The Werewolf in London. And a lot of films, all the wolf, there's a few films out there which show what werewolves are. Let's break it down now. Let's go into what we know, what can defeat it, the cures for it, and down to it, let's just break it down. Let's start off with how you become a werewolf. You can become a werewolf in multiple ways. We're going to go through 3, and then I'm going to give you 2 others which are similar kind of change creatures, how they become that. To see, because some cultures will say a werewolf is also formed in those cultures that way. Start off with deal with the devil. As a werewolf is seen in Christianity as an evil creature, how one might become a werewolf is through making a deal with the devil, like in the tale of the Werewolf of Bannenberg, where the young boy makes a deal with the devil to turn into a wolf. Secondly, there's through a bite. Some people say if you're bitten by a werewolf on a full moon, you will turn into a werewolf and you will have the curse of lycanthropy. And usually the first couple changes are always the worst, where you're just becoming who you are as a werewolf. Now it's going to a few more controversial ones. Even though it's a curse, some people don't believe being a werewolf is a curse, they believe it's genetic. So like, if your mum and dad are a werewolf, you will become a werewolf, or if your father's a werewolf, you'll become one. That's really your genes, being passed down through family members. This one's a little bit less talked about. You see a lot more in fiction. So like cases of just films, or I believe it's in the Vampire Diaries, if your family's a werewolf, you become one. So it comes into a bit more of a fiction. But there are people who believe out in the world that is the case. Next, it's a similar creature in Native American folklore called the Skinwalker. It's a man a shaman, or who can turn, because they turn to evil powers, into creatures. Shows a very similar to a werewolf. How they become that is they dabble in the dark arts. That's an interesting one, because it shows across the world, from Slavic to Western to Middle Eastern, and even to Native America, the tale of the werewolf lives on. And even with that, a lot of the tales of how to defeat them keep going. So, in Western Europe, because of Christian influences, a werewolf can be defeated using 3 objects: a silver bullet, a cross, and holy water. Obviously, depending on your beliefs, they might work, they might not. Obviously, we don't know with creatures and stuff, but those do follow across. They believe in more in Native American world and even in the West. There's a plant which can be used with many names to deal with werewolves as well. You tip your bullets in it and it says it will kill a werewolf. It's called wolfsbane or monk's head. This is a plant many people have probably seen out on your walks. It's highly poisonous to touch. Dipping in a crossbow bolt or bullet in there will cause it to be strong enough to take down a werewolf. They say that's why it's called wolfsbane, because the wolves hate it and werewolves hate it. That's a very key factor in a lot of these stories. It's how you defeat it. Before we break down it any further, I want to tell you a few more stories of a few other gods from around the world who brought werewolves into them. Let's start off with number 1.
Lycan comes from ancient Greece, and he was first king turned into a lycanthrope. The reason he was turned into a lycanthrope was by Zeus, the god of all gods, the judge of all gods. When he became evil, a tyrant, he also dabbled in the sacrifice of metals to gods that was unheard of and unacceptable. So they turned him into a wolf, gave him the curse of lycanthropy.
They don't use this term, but this is where we get the term lycanthropy from. The reason why this event is so significant is this is the first time we find it fully written down. Before the Epic of Gilgamesh was found, this was the first account. And in this, in Homer's Iliad, is written that Lycan's second son was killed by Achilles during a battle, and this is the first time ever recorded of a lycanthrope. And where we get the term someone changed by a wolf is through lycon. This is a term said to do with wolves. As I now told you some of the history about werewolves and the actual stuff and from where it comes from, I want to give my opinions on it. I believe deep down there is not werewolves
Especially in places we don't really go to. When you look up at the moon, it's a full moon, you feel something. I think a lot of it is the same in animal kingdom.
When it's on the full moon, stuff like wolves howl. I personally think what people started seeing was a large wolf. He was howling one day, and people went, "That's too big to be a wolf. It must be a man in wolf form." And like anything, it's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of the beast inside, which encourages why lycanthropy and the werewolf is such a prevalent in most societies. It's the fear of the beast inside. That's where a lot of lycanthropy comes from. Most people feel there's a beast, inner monster inside of you, which comes out. And that's where lycanthropy comes from. But there's a more clinical term. It's clinical lycanthropy. That is the term when someone feels they are a wolf and they act in wolf behaviours. This is an actually recorded case. There's not really many about them. I wasn't able to find much on it, but it's a clinical case. When it really comes to werewolves, there's a lot out there, and a lot of it is down to the person. Lots of different folk believe in werewolves, and that's why I say it's to do with the beast within. But we all have this monster inside of us, and that's how people explain it. Some people, or even in psychosis to some people in past times, oh, it's a werewolf. In actual fact, it could be a very sick person. So, what I'm trying to state with it is, I think it's an example of how we can be as a person, about the monster within and our animal instinct. But with any of these videos, I'd love to hear what you think of these topics. I'd love to hear your own stories. What do you think of the werewolf? Do you know any good sources where we could do it? We could come back to this and do an even more detailed video. I'd love to do that. So please, like and subscribe to the video. Comment down below your opinions, or even if you just love the video. I love to hear positive feedback. So comment away. This has been Vented. This has been VenterAdventurers. Keep venting.